hello, I'm Karen Cator. I'm the CEO of Digital Promise, and I'll be your host for today's important conversation about bridging the digital divide, providing access for all Shelby County students, and it will have many, many strategies and lessons for wherever you are across the country. So thank you for joining us. If you have questions, please add them to the Q&A at the bottom of your screen. You know where the chat is. There's also a Q&A button, and we encourage you to put your questions in the Q&A. I'll be monitoring that, and hopefully we will get to your questions. We have a lot to talk about. Your questions are important. So I am very pleased to introduce our three guests today. So first of all, Dr. Joris Ray is the Superintendent of Shelby County Public Schools, and he has served in this capacity since April of 2019. With more than 100,000 students in over 200 schools, Shelby County is the largest school district in Tennessee, the second largest employer in Shelby County, and one of the 25 largest public schools in the nation. Also with us today is an important member of Dr. Ray's team, Jerica Philips. She's the Chief of Communications for Shelby County Schools, and she was previously a reporter and news anchor for WMC TV in Memphis. I'm also very pleased to introduce my longtime friend and colleague, Dr. Mark Edwards. Dr. Edwards is a highly respected expert in digital transformation. He previously served as superintendent of North Carolina's Mooresville Graded School District, as well as superintendent of Virginia's Henrico County, both places where he led significant and successful digital transformations. Dr. Edwards was the National Teacher of the Year in 2013, and he's the author of Every Child, Every Day, a digital conversion model for student achievement. You can read their full and very impressive bios online. We're very happy to have you, so welcome. So, Dr. Ray, I would love to just kind of start with you, and if you could introduce us to your district and your vision for excellent and equitable education in Shelby County. Thanks,
well,
and I believe you have some slides, yes.
Yes, greetings. Thank you so much. I'm so honored to be here. So we had a little slight technical difficulties, but that's okay. We're moving forward, and as a, once a teacher, always a teacher, and you monitor and you adjust. So that's what we're doing this morning. So again, Karen, thank you for having me. I see my good friend Mark there. Glad to be here with you. So Shelby County Schools, again, I'm a product of this school district. So this work is very personal to me. And, this journey started for me January 2019 as a superintendent, from student to superintendent. And one of the very first things that we talked about as superintendent, I wanted to move to a one-to-one school district. And that's a conversation that I had before my board, and we devised a plan. We were all excited, but of course it takes funding to incorporate any vision that you have. And our thinking was during that time, I was seeing, because many of the teachers here, they complained about the response to intervention. That's RTI, that's a mandate from the state. And, I was envisioning how we move to a one-to-one. It buys that additional hour back into the school day, and that it creates a longer school day, a longer school week, and possibly a longer school year for our students. So that was the vision around moving to a one-to-one. Plus, it was just a sense of equity and access to devices for all of our students, and to ensure that we close the digital divide here. So if you see the need, 2/3 of our families didn't have access to a digital device. And that was very, very problematic. And we conducted a needs assessment to really see who had what. Did they have a device at home? Some parents had devices, some, but didn't have access to the internet. Some students had the internet, but didn't have a device. Some of my parents and students, they had absolutely nothing. And so we had to really get a needs assessment and to see. And so we did all this, quote unquote, pre-COVID, because the one-to-one wasn't a reaction to what was going on with COVID. Again, we started this February 2019. It was a great need in our community, and it was just the right thing to do at the time. Next slide. So it was our goal, as I said before, to ensure that all students in our district, pre-K through 12, uh, had a device. We formed a, this year we formed a focus group, if you will, not so much as focus group, I apologize, an advisory team made up of uh, technology experts, business leaders, teachers, superintendents like Mike Edwards, who was the guru of this and implemented this across the country. Just someone to give us advice of how do we put a device in every student's hand. And we're so fortunate the team came together, gave us great feedback, but also it helped me sell the school board. As superintendent, you always want 9-0 votes, right? And so we had board members who this was a major, major purchase. And of course, there's uneasiness and unreadiness because they want the return on investment. And, Mark and other folks on the team really helped us bridge that gap with the board and really, just talked through some strategy to get the board to really understand that we could possibly be the first school district in the state to move to a true one-to-one. Next slide. So, another hurdle we had to jump, you have teacher unions. And if you read anything about me, I believe in uniting for a common cause and bringing everybody together. But also, I believe in removing barriers to the work. And one part of the teacher association, um, they saw the devices as a threat, and it was mixed messaging, if you will, going out about devices and how devices are going to replace the teacher. And we had to really do some work, and I'll allow Jerica to talk about this shortly, the communication strategy that we use. But we really had to do work with our teachers and internal work. I thought the big sale will be external customers, our parents, business leaders, and what have you, but it was really internal work with our principals and with our teachers. Um, so we had to really send a message that a device is just a device, and the device does not replace a teacher. And we had to be really clear about the device. We had to be really clear that it's still going to take quality instruction. However, it's going to take us all learning more and for us shifting to how we deliver instruction. And that's that paradigm shift that's where we are now with entrenched in professional development and really giving our teachers new tools and new ways to deliver instruction. Um, but also our teachers, in the midst of this, I really had to sell them on, hey guys, we're not doing this because of COVID-19. We're doing this because this is the right work to do for children. And when we find a vaccine and we're all back to normal, whatever that's going to look like, understand that we're a one-to-one school district, and this is how we're going to deliver instruction moving forward. Next slide. So I'm gonna allow Jerica to really get into the awareness and communication and how we really, garner input internally, externally, and what heavy lift it took for us to really to get all hands on devices. You know, folks say all hands on deck. We say all hands on devices to really get the buy-in from the public, to get buy-in from our teachers and our principals, and to really sell our school board, who so graciously approved in an 8-to-1 vote for us to make one of the largest purchases in Shelby County Schools history. So I'm gonna move over and I'll have Jerica to really get deep into that.
Excellent.
Sure. Thank you so much, Dr. Ray. And of course, we certainly want to get to many of your questions and have that conversation about this rollout and the vision as Dr. Ray has shared. And so just talking about the vision and wanting to move to a one-to-one district, and also the need, assessing the need was one of the first things that we had to understand in order to provide the support. So we know that it's so important before you tell people what they need, you want to include their voice on how we implement this sort of strategy. And so we determine the need, and then also set our goals. And as Dr. Ray talked about, the instruction and support, just getting the buy-in from our teachers internally and from our board, who would need to vote to make this multi-million-dollar purchase. And then the awareness began with our campaign. And so, so grateful and honored to have joined the district during this time. I don't think anybody would have predicted that they would be leading in a pandemic. And so coming from the journalism background and media relations, just having that PR support and leveraging those people in the community who I knew could step in and also help carry the message here in Memphis and across Shelby County was very important. And so we began having stakeholder meetings, as well as our community forums. We call them listening sessions. And I know Mark saw many of those as we streamed them online. And of course, it was very difficult because you could only have 25 people to join during a pandemic as we socially distance. And so again, making sure that we gave access to parents to join us, share their questions. They were able to submit questions ahead of time. And then we were able to answer those on the spot during our listening sessions. And so what you'll see here on this slide is, again, some of the tactics that were used to support our strategy. Of course, we use social media. We use our fact sheets in order to share some of those fast facts and let people know, here are the top things you need to know. Again, we wanted to make sure that everything was available in a comprehensive location. So our website has been huge. We've had, 5 million hits since March on our SCS website, and that's been huge for us. And then, of course, engaging parents and parent ambassadors, having parents to help us carry that message has been so important because, again, we know that the support at home while we're learning virtually is going to come not only from the teacher-led instruction, but also peer-to-peer parent support and parents feeling like they're now more engaged than ever in their students' learning, because they're basically sitting in the classroom now with their students. And so you can go on to the next slide that just talks about support, and I'll wrap it up and allow Dr. Ray to come back, but I'll let him speak to the funding because that was a big part of this. But as far as our elected officials, our strategic partners, I talked about our parent ambassadors. We actually have a chief of family and community engagement who we have worked hand in hand to be able to carry this message and empower, as Dr. Ray calls, our change champions, people who have really come in and said, how can I help? What resources can I provide? And organizations obviously like Digital Promise and those who are leveraging this message across the country and bringing in other leaders, that is really the fellowship and support is how districts like Shelby County have been successful thus far in this work. So again, the stakeholder engagement and the communication tactics that we use across the board, whether it be text messages or websites or listening sessions, it's been very important and part of our strategy to get the buy-in from our community. So I'll step back out and allow Dr. Ray to kind of speak to the funding and how that moved forward and where we are now.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thanks, Jerica. So, of course, again, we tried to do this, and this was brought up February 2019, and it boiled down to we went to our funding bodies here. That's the county commission, and we didn't get the investment. So now COVID-19 happens and we get CARES dollars. And it gave us the prime opportunity, number one, to go to what we really want to do anyway. That's the one-to-one. But also the public was ripe for the moment. And we in Jerica talked about some of the community support and how we leveraged that. So we received some philanthropic dollars along with CARES dollars, along with the city of Memphis, who is not responsible for funding public education here. However, that's the county's responsibility. However, the city of Memphis uh, graciously approved a $5 million budget ask to use some of their CARES dollars to support digital devices. And it's very significant. I know for years here, the city and the county and some business leaders was trying to develop this broadband strategy to ensure that everyone has access to the internet, if you will. And just the outpouring of support and how we're leveraging sponsorships now and how folks really just gravitating and paying hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions, to have access to our parents and students to advertise whatever business they're trying to advertise. So that's how we put together the package to fund. And that's one of the things that our board members really wanted to know about. How can we sustain this over the next a number of years? So we had to really ensure to our board that this is sustainable. This is going to be embedded in our DNA. This is not something we're buying this year and use for a couple of years and then we're phasing out. This is our new normal, and this is what we want to do to impact student achievement.
Well, that's excellent. And what a story. I think that's actually interesting that you already were well down the path to getting towards a one-to-one, providing access for every single student. And when COVID hit, like that was the big story in town. How was everybody in the country going to actually get access at home?
Right.
I have one quick question, then I want to bring in Dr. Edwards. But the question is around connectivity. So you talked about you have, you are looking at how the community can support a more of an internet for all kind of an approach. How are you handling home connectivity? The device is one thing, but students have to actually be able to connect to the internet. How are you handling that?
So great question, and I should have mentioned that, but that's one of the things that was a concern of the board as well, and a concern of mine. When we did the needs assessment, we figured out that we had thousands of students and families, I want to say 15 to 20,000, didn't have access to the internet. So what we decided to do to put together the entire package, we decided to purchase 25,000 hotspots for students. So parents that identified and say, hey, I need a device, but also I don't have internet. If I did get the device, we decided to provide hotspots. So one hotspot will connect up to 5 devices. So you're a parent with multiple children at home, like Ms. Phillips over here, who has 4 children that's within our school district. Now, all of her students would get children would get a device, but they have access to internet as well. So that was very significant for us to ensure that the board and the community really understand where we were going. We had to provide that internet connectivity.
Yeah, and that is actually how you're going to get, even when you're back in school, that 1 hour of time back, closing the homework gap on day one, which is fantastic. Yeah. So Mark, you know the district well. If I guess, what do you see, and how is Dr. Ray and his team set up for success, and kind of what makes you hopeful? You have run huge, I think probably Henrico County with what was it, 30,000, 20, I don't know, some number of tens of thousands of students. Probably the first big one-to-one in the country. What are you seeing?
Well, thanks, Karen. It's a pleasure to be with you today. And, you know, when I first met Dr. Ray and started talking to him, he reminded me immediately of a legendary superintendent, Dr. Willie Harrington from Memphis. And I told Dr. Ray, I said, when I first became a superintendent, he was one of the first guys that I got to know. And I remember his big vision. Well, when I talked to Dr. Ray's got that same big vision. And one of the things that I observed through the last few months, and Karen, as you well know, and Jerica knows, and Dr. Ray, you hit bumps. And Dr. Ray, he handles those bumps with ease. He's got the courage. And, you know, in one meeting where you don't do things like this, it sounds easy listening to Dr. Ray and to Jerica. When you're managing conflict, and you're managing change, Dr. Ray was asked one night, you're putting your job on the line? And his answer was, I put my job on the line every day. He demonstrates the courage that's necessary to lead in an effort. Something else, though, that I really, you know, he grew up in Memphis. He's a hometown guy. He's got the conviction about the students. And the first time I was talking to Dr. Ray, he said, we're going to leverage this. We're going to leverage this, the pandemic resources, but this is about every child in this district having opportunity. So it's exciting. And I would also say this with Jerica, Dr. Ray, and the team in Shelby County, they lead with their culture, and their culture is about let's lead and make a difference. So I think it's exciting, and I predict that we are going to hear and see great things about Shelby County Schools.
All right. Well, I have a question about you know, the scope of this is daunting. It's, you know, 95,000 devices, 25,000 hotspots. The logistics alone are quite something. So how are you handling logistics and the distribution of devices with physical distancing requirements? Talk a little bit about some of your strategies there.
You know, that is great, and I'll be remiss if I didn't talk about my chief of staff, Patrice Wilson Thomas, who really just led this charge, and now she's leading the charge on getting the devices deployed, and that's something that it has to be all hands on devices, and that's what we're saying. And what we've done is we're starting with high school, and we have with COVID-19, you know, many of our teachers still out. You know, it's still a bit of fear here, and so what we have to do is, in the midst of all this, is manage the fear. You have to manage to ensure social distancing, keeping people safe. And we have 5 deployment locations here. And we're going from, I want to say 7 to 7, 6 days, 5 days a week. Then on one Saturday, I think we're going from 10 in the morning till about 4 in the afternoon. Don't have the schedules right in front of me, but it's very strategic, you know, to where parents will come to a welcome area, and in that welcome area is where they, you know, give all the information, and we get as much data from our parents as possible. That after we get the much data from our parents, ensure they're actively enrolled and what have you, then we move parents to the distribution area. That's where they pick up the device, hotspot if they need it, and then they do some checkout there. So this is a very, very cumbersome, you know, task. It's one that Mark said it best. You know, one of the board members asked me about put my job on the line for devices, and I said I will put it on the line for the students of Shelby County Schools any day, because I do feel our students and teachers deserve this.
Excellent. I understand you have a little expertise from FedEx in your community as well.
Yes, Rob Cator, Senior Vice President, Federal Express, and he really helped me with some logistical matters and really distribution, just thinking about that. But not only that, he was a champion in the community. I talk about change champions, and Mark, definitely a change champion, but Rob was a change champion when it got tough. I had a couple of board members still, just in the middle of the road, was very unsure. Rob really helped convince this particular board member and just laying things out to where, just understanding the moment. But not only that, he helped explain, hey, we don't have to abandon our broadband strategies just because we're giving out hotspots now. We will continue to work towards the community broadband strategy. And so just his expertise, along with Mark, and I had another board member on there as well, just really rallying the community. And, this wasn't an easy sell. This wasn't something where I walked in and my board was gung-ho and say, this is what we want to do. Even after we demonstrated that, we had funding. Now they wanted to hear about exquisite execution and how this is going to impact student achievement.
We have one detailed question in the chat I just want to cover off really quickly, and that is procurement process. Did you do competitive bidding? I would assume.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, we had to by law.
Yeah.
So I know we did, had master agreements that we used, but yes, had to go through a bid process. I don't think we did any piggybacking on any state contracts. This is important. And then we boiled down to minority women business owners and make sure we had some local buy-in and some local vendors too. That was important to the board as well.
Yeah.
And so we came down to 3. I think Microsoft really was one where we really could have done this pre-K through 12, but we had to look at minority women businesses and local businesses, and so what we decided to do was pre-K through 8. We used Microsoft, and then 9-12 we use HP.
Yeah.
So that was big, and that was another thing that helped us in the community too, because people want to see you spending this amounts of dollars. We want to ensure that some of that money stays right here in Shelby County, and to ensure that our families and our economy can benefit from what the large purchase Shelby County Schools was making for these great devices.
Well done. Let's turn over to think about teachers. I love that your communications were so, those of us who have been in this for a while absolutely know that technology does not replace teachers. It augments their performance. It helps them do what they do better, raises them to a higher level. But let's talk a little bit about teachers. This spring, I personally was so grateful for the incredibly resourceful problem-solving nature of teachers across the country for years and years. But this spring, it came in, it was crucial, and it was extremely helpful as learning went home. But now teachers are really having this time where they do need to learn to teach differently. They need to learn how to leverage online spaces, adapt to individual needs, different kinds of assessments. So how are you handling teacher professional development, and how are you going to help them continuously learn this year?
Well, first thing, you have to do, you have to ensure that our teachers' basic needs, we have to make sure their basic needs are met. Right now, many of our teachers are fearful. And, with the whole virus and with everything's going on, it's so much uncertainty. So first you have to treat the human condition.
Mhm.
So, but at the same time, I know we have to ramp up and get teachers trained on, we're using the team um, platform. And so our teachers really have been going through a number of hours of training this summer. And I know over 60% of our teachers have already completed the 9 hours that we requested. And I'm quite sure within the next few weeks, we'll have 100%. But first, you have to treat that human condition for them to get over the fear of COVID, but then get over the fear of using the device as an instructional tool. But also, uh, just getting them to really shift their mind around project-based learning. And when you have a device, that's the big switch, right? And we have ongoing professional development. We've actually trained our board members, and that was key. We wanted our board and our lay public to see, how is this going to work? How would a teacher interface with their students and still deliver high quality instruction via the device? And again, the device is no different than a textbook, right? You as the teacher, you must bring it to life. You must deliver instruction in a way to where our kids still connect and use the device and the advantages of the device to ensure that our students are still learning at high level. So
Yeah.
we are definitely at ground zero. I have a great chief academic officer, Dr. Burt, who's really just grabbing the best practices across the nation. I know he's been working with Kennesaw State and just learning from them. And this is something that, I told the team yesterday, I said, hey, I'm worried about high quality instruction with the devices.
Yeah.
And my team is geared and ready.
Yeah. Mark, other thoughts? I mean, you've seen this for a long time. What are your thoughts on what are the strategies that will help teachers thrive and support all their students in the very best ways?
To me, it's so gratifying and also inspiring to hear, Dr. Ray talk about the human condition and human needs. And I think that when school leaders lead with a sense of conviction, not just about students, but about all the employees, and really understand that how important their work is, not just to a school, but to an entire community. So I think a variety of levels of support are key. And I know that Dr. Ray, the team in Shelby County, they're not looking at this, and this is, I think, important. They're not looking at this as a 1 year, a 2 year. They're taking the long view. And I think school districts around the country, you have to have a long view, and then you have to have enduring conviction. And I think one of the things that Shelby County's doing, and they're really stepping up, is building leadership capacity at every level. Yeah. They have a variety of, they're training to use the instructional, the device, but they're also training to lead. And one of the things and I've been on a lot of calls with a lot of different team members, and you hear a common theme: conviction, and this sense of this is a long-term, this is not short-term, long-term. So I think that type of conviction, the long-term, but for teachers, it's a constant sense of support, messaging that in every way you can, and listening. I know Dr. Ray formulated a teacher advisory committee. On the steering committee, we had teachers and students. That's right. Students that were giving voice, teachers that were giving voice. So that type of collaborative planning is going to pay long term.
And how have you seen projects play out and how does technology support project-based learning and getting kids beyond sort of the headphones and math problems, but to do much more problem solving and that kind of thing? Have you seen that play out?
So this summer, we have the Summer Learning Academy, and our teachers definitely using technology, bringing it to life. That's something our teachers are really being trained in right now, the whole paradigm shift and just project-based learning. But also in this environment, we had to train our parents, and our parents have to help us as well. And you know, they've really gravitated to, hey, this is a way that I could spend time with my child, helping them with assignments. And also just bringing the level of ownership from our students. That's so important too, to own their own learning. But also, now as I told some teachers, when you go into a digital world, now the days are gone of you hiding behind four walls, and not to say the teachers were doing that, but you can't close the door and you sit down behind the desk and allow students to do worksheets. Now everybody, the world is watching. Parents will be at home; they'll be watching. Folks can tune in. Your principals, everybody will be watching you. So there's no hiding in this world, because now everybody will see the great work that's going on right here in Shelby County. But the whole project-based instruction, that's something that my teachers will definitely, and even this superintendent will have to learn how to shift and how to really turn our world around to really get our students really thinking beyond pencil and paper and just turning some work in and move away from direct instruction to students taking ownership of their own learning.
Yeah, that's so interesting. That's something we've seen across the country as well, is the necessity of student agency, especially as this spring when people turned off grading. Like they said, we're either going to do pass fail or no grades at all. Some students were like that, why do I need to do anything? And some students were like, all right, I will learn so I can learn something or have something to do or what, other reasons. So building agency and using this sort of crisis point in time to build agency is a critical factor.
Right.
On the more difficult side of things, or maybe some of the other challenges, how are you accommodating students with disabilities, special education students, and even English language learners, like when students who need very specialized supports? How are you thinking about that as students are learning at home?
So we have to follow IEPs.
Yes.
And actually, we developed a hotline for our parents here with all of the special education experts, our lawyers here. That's something that the team is definitely, working through. But we will provide that support to our parents and to our students. As I've stated and told everyone here, we will follow the law. And what's been very helpful is the hotline, working with each individual parent to ensure that we follow the IEP and give the supports that's needed for each child to be successful.
That's an important strategy.
No doubt.
I guess as we think about, and if you want to bring Jerica back in as well, I'm thinking from your perspectives, what are the greatest challenges, or maybe pick one. There are so many challenges and so many things that problem solve every day, but maybe one challenge and how you're planning to tackle them. And maybe Mark, you can have one as well. What's a challenge and how will you tackle that?
Right now, the biggest challenge, and I have to say, two come to mind. One is just the 95,000 devices and the distribution. That's the immediate challenge. Where school starts, we had a start date of August 10th. So we actually changed the calendar to push school back to August 31st. They gave us a longer runway of just really how we're going to distribute the devices. So it's so many moving parts, right? You have the moving parts of getting a device in, then you got to get a device ready for use. And then you got to distribute the device in a way, and COVID-19 makes it more difficult because of the actual, social distancing and all of that, and just how in a manner that we give the device out, make sure things are sanitized, just the whole 9 yards of that. And then yesterday, I made the announcement here that we were going all virtual to start the school year. So I have even more pressure of getting all of the devices out by August 31st. But even if we don't get all the new devices in, we're going to have some used devices that we definitely going to get up and going so that we can all start in a synchronous kind of way. Start learning. So that's the immediate issue that we talk about. I moved cabinet from 1 day a week. Now we have cabinet 2 or 3 times a week. And my team has a call every morning about all hands on devices every day, including some weekends. That's the immediate challenge. And I'm going to let Jerica talk about some of the communications challenges. But the second is the instructional delivery using the device. That's another, here again, professional development, getting our teachers comfortable with the device and just technology, period. And not to see it, device as competition. But to use it as a tool like you would overhead projector, if you will, smart board, same thing, except changing the way we deliver instruction and moving to more of a project-based instruction. So I know that's a big gap, but here again, Rome wasn't built in a day, and Mark always, tells me often, this is a 3 to 5 year strategy or implementation, if you will. We're not going to get all this done in 1 year. My first order of business was let's get the devices while we got the funds to get the devices. And now we're going to put the right supports and professional development in place to ensure that our teachers are executing using the device. So Jerica's going to come back in and just briefly talk about some of the communication strategies.
Yep, communication is absolutely critical, and two-way. Jerica, Dr. Ray is lucky to have you at home there. Talk a little bit about the challenges you see.
Yeah, so I definitely would say that consistent messaging is one of our biggest challenges. During a pandemic, of course, we were balancing competing priorities as a communications department for such a large district, so many departments, and hey, my initiative needs highlights. I need to be covered in this area, and I need a flyer. I need, media relations to put this story out. But I think during the pandemic, just a consistent messaging for families is what they want to hear. They want to hear that the message is not going to change even during uncertain times. And then the media is on top of this as well, just asking for definite answers all the time when we don't have all the answers during such an unprecedented time. So I would definitely say that just making sure that our messaging is consistent, and then definitely leveraging our community to help us carry this message has just been our biggest challenge thus far, and making sure that everyone is informed, we're transparent about what's happening. I think we had a big challenge the other day where teachers found out something before principals found out something. And so there's always like this scurry to try to make sure everybody gets the message at the same time. And just so grateful for organizations, again, like Digital Promise, because I know that all of our goal is to improve outcomes and to make sure that our students are ready for college and their careers. And so the platform platforms that you all provide and the innovative opportunities to bring others together across the nation to kind of talk through these challenges is really helpful, I know, for me as a new leader in this space, and to understand how to address and solve for some of these challenges. So that, again, I will just say thank you so much to all of you all on the call for having us, and then so appreciative of Dr. Ray's leadership. His vision has really set the tone, and that's made it even more and I won't say easy, but it has lightened our load in regards to how we go out and message, because he makes a clear decision and then we know exactly what we're going to go out and say. So that's helpful for us. But again, thank you all for allowing us to participate today. And I'll turn it back over to you, Karen and Dr. Ray.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. Yeah, critical. So, Mark, one big question for you. You have a national view. You've been a dean of education. You've worked in corporate America. You've been superintendents. You've run huge initiatives. You've written books. I mean, you kind of have this national view. So, what do you see right now with COVID, with this, what's happening right now across the country? What do you see as kind of the short-term opportunity and the long-term vision for the country with this sort of instant proliferation of devices?
Well, sure. You know, I can, you know, one of the things that I believe the big challenge, and Dr. Ray and I have talked about this and the staff, is getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. Yeah. And for the next year, there's going to be a lot of discomfort. There's going to be bumps and turbulence. And I think a real key is, and there's a lot of messaging in Shelby County from the entire community about, let's stick together. We're going to hold hands and stick together. We're going to learn and grow together. And I think that's something that we see, but I do think there are huge silver linings in this whole area. One, we're going to see the greatest exponential increase in the use of digital resources in Shelby County and other districts than we've ever seen. So now I'm not, you know, there's great sorrow and challenge with the pandemic. But there's leaders rise up in these times. And we have leaders all over the country in Digital Promise, the Lead Innovative Schools, they're all over, who will lead, other leaders will watch this, they'll look at the work in Shelby County. So I think that we're going to see an increase in not just use of technology, collaboration. And I think one of the big things out of this that I'm excited about is we'll see collaborative networks like Digital Promise in localized. And then the other is ultimately personalizing for all students. Karen, about 15 years ago, we were sitting in a meeting and you said, Mark, personalization. At the time, I didn't understand it, but I know now. And I think students in Shelby County are going to have a chance to see personalized learning. And the other thing I think all over the country, we're going to find out that when teachers and students learn together, things go better. And I think we're going to see teachers and students in Shelby County learning together, leaders learning together. And I'll have to say this, I'm inspired when I hear leaders like Dr. Ray say, we are going to do this. And I think it takes that type of deep conviction. But when leaders do that, people respond to it. So we're going to be hearing great things about districts all over this country who stand up and lead. And that's what I think is going to happen.
Excellent. I appreciate that. And Dr. Ray, maybe I love Mark's notion of a silver lining. Any silver lining you see with this? I know you said you're starting remotely in the fall and you have a lot going on, but any sort of silver lining that you see with this? And maybe Jerica, I'll let you have the final word with the silver lining after that.
Yes. You know, the silver lining is we have a device in every student's hand. That's true equity. And whether you're rich or whether you're poor, you got a device. And now there's a synchronized way here of providing an equitable education to all of our students. So that's so important. And every week I do a video message to all the families here. And we've done this probably since March. And how I end it, and is so true, and Mark hit on it. What I say is, we're stronger together. Coronavirus will not defeat us because we are 901. And that message has resonated throughout the community. And again, all hands on devices here. And I think the public and everyone knows this is a way that the community has definitely galvanized around this school district, because it's something that all parents, uh, believe in. All parents understand the gravity of the moment. I think COVID-19 really hit everybody in the nose about, if we would have had a device back when I talked about this February 2019, we would have had devices, going into this year, it'd been so much easier to plug and go. But we're, ripe for the moment. And I'm just so honored to lead the very school district where I once was a child. And the silver lining is about student equity and everyone getting a device to enhance their learning. So I allow Jerica to talk about her silver lining. Yeah, they want you to talk about your silver lining too.
That was a very lovely ending spot and a hugely important message on equity. But Jerica, I would love to hear also what you see as a silver lining for your community. You also have been there for quite a while. And so what do you see as a silver lining for your community?
Yeah, and as a product of this district as well, and as Dr. Ray said, having children in the district, just as a parent, I think that empowering our parents is the silver lining, and making sure that they feel connected as part of this work, because we talk about all the time, no longer will it just be educational institutions or school districts who will lead this. We need parents to step up and parent. We need the community to step in and provide resources for our parents who may be struggling in so many different ways. And, coming from a background where I had both parents in my life, I know that just telling the story of so many children in Memphis and the poverty level, it just, when you have the key supports that you need as a parent to be able to help your child move the needle in education and achievement. I've always said that education, and Dr. Ray says it all the time, it's a great equalizer, but it opens so many doors for you to be able to move out of your circumstances. And so again, just empowering our parents and community members is key.
Well, thank you very much. And I actually want to do a quick shout out to Khalid Hamed from Egypt, who has joined us for the webinar. We've seen him on a few other webinars, but thank you. Thank you everyone for joining us. And thank you, Mark, Dr. Ray, Jerica, for sharing your knowledge of education, digital transformation, the challenges you see, as well as your wisdom. We're all better for it. And thank you very much to our participants today.
Thank you all.
So we will be posting the recording of this webinar, and we'll let you know when it's available. This webinar is one of a series that focused on our schools during this challenging time. You can find recordings of past webinars on our website that you see on the screen. We're going to host three more in August, including one on August 20th, same time as today, on August 20th with the New York City Chancellor, Richard Carranza, and also the Chancellor of the New York Board of Regents, Dr. Betty Rosa. So mark your calendars for that one. And please, a survey will open in a tab as soon as you log off here, and we really do appreciate your feedback. But for today, thank you very much for joining. I'm Karen Cator, signing off. Thank you.